justice at all. I mean, his feud with CM Punk over the WWE Championship should have gone in a completely different direction, but it didn't. And it really let me down. And I think that Kane's been looking for momentum and a way to turn his wrestling career around. Turning Kane face was a big decision for WWE to make, and it was done effectively. The reunion of The Undertaker and Kane was awesome. I'll never forget the awesome chants that were thrown towards The Undertaker and Kane after the one of the final segments of the 3-hour Raw from several weeks ago in celebration of Raw 1000 was done. And it really left me believing we're going to see The Undertaker versus Kane at least one more time. My favorite Undertaker-Kane feud was definitely during the Attitude Era when Kane made his debut in 1997. WWE gave The Undertaker and Kane 5 months to build up for one of the best WrestleMania matches in the way of wrestling ability being exemplified in the match. It wasn't just the feud and the storyline behind it that made the match great. It was the actual wrestling we got from The Undertaker and Kane. No match The Undertaker and Kane have had following their match at WrestleMania 14 have lived up to what WrestleMania 14's altercation left us with. The match between The Undertaker and Kane at WrestleMania 14 was the secondary main event to Austin and Michaels, and it was one of the most detailed storylines that WWE had thrown our way over the last 10 years, and I really want to see something in the way of The Undertaker versus Kane done in the way of mutual respect, because that is the only thing The Undertaker and Kane have not done over the last several years. I mean, they've teamed together. They had a phenomenal run as the tag team champions, but even then, I didn't feel any mutual respect between The Undertaker and Kane, and I think that's what The Undertaker and Kane's history has left to be desired. And if we don't get that, we're going to have a lot of unanswered questions still in our mind, and we're still going to be wanting more for The Undertaker and Kane. The Undertaker's been involved with WWE for over 20 years. He's faced virtually everybody, and his win and loss record apart from WrestleMania is impressive. I mean, his win-loss record is probably more impressive than any win-loss record in WWE's history on the active roster or any legend or alumni wrestler who's been involved with WWE over the last number of years. No win-loss record will make a comparison or create a debate when it comes to The Undertaker or who has had the best win and loss record in WWE's history. I think that if The Undertaker streak is going to end, it needs to end at WrestleMania 29 because this streak has gone on for far too long. I know there are fans out there who believe The Undertaker streak should go with him following his induction into the Hall of Fame and his decision to retire. And I believe The Undertaker's win and loss streak at WrestleMania should go with him as well. But like everything in professional wrestling, all good things should come to an end, even The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania. And he's deserving of losing his streak at WrestleMania to someone who is deserving of ending the streak at WrestleMania. And right now I believe there is no other wrestler who has a detailed history more with The Undertaker than Kane. And right now I think that wrestling fans are really asking for The Undertaker versus Kane. And the fact Kane has gone back to wearing a mask gives us that Masked Kane versus Dead Man Undertaker feud, which we've been asking for ever since that incredible feud they were involved in the late 1990s as part of the Attitude Era, the era of WWE that allowed them to jump ahead of WCW in the ratings and eventually put WCW out of business. The Undertaker and Kane's contribution to that Monday Night War with WCW definitely allowed WWE to jump ahead and gain a decisive advantage in the ratings war after losing to WCW 86 to 87 consecutive weeks in that ratings war that Pro Wrestling Illustrated heavily documented and, really believed that WCW were going to put WWE out of business. But WWE got the job done for superstars like The Undertaker, Kane, Austin, and Rock, who were involved in incredible feuds. If they were to take it in the direction of the Rock John Cena feud from 2012, that would be a huge plus because I think it would make the match more enjoyable. We would see a lot of close calls in the match, and it would leave us really on the edge of our seats. If one wrestler were to be heel and one wrestler were to be a fan favorite, like it was in 1998, with all the fans being in the corner of The Undertaker and Kane being a dominant heel, that would lead us in the direction of believing that The Undertaker was going to retain his streak, and we don't want to see that. We want to be left on the edge of our seats like we were for The Undertaker versus Triple H Part 1 and Part 2, and Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker Part 1 and Part 2 over the last 4 years. We want to be left wondering who is going to win. We want to know that both wrestlers have a decisive chance of ending the streak or winning the match. and we want to really not know who's going to win. We want to be left on the edge of our seats, and in the weeks leading up to the match, we want to kind of be debating as to who we believe is going to win. We just don't want to believe the Undertaker is going to win. The Undertaker has the biggest advantage in the match because the fans are all in his corner. We want it to be kind of half and half for Kane, half for the Undertaker, which is something we have never seen before. And if it were to happen, I believe that wrestling fans would be left in awe because of the respect that they would have for both wrestlers. That is what we need to see. I think that will give us an old school type 90s wrestling feel, which WWE has really lost since the early 2000s. I know there are a lot of fans of especially the 80s and 90s for the wrestling we got in the 80s and 90s. Sure, they weren't great with storylines. They didn't have very much detail, but the wrestling from the 80s and 90s is what captivated especially WWF fans, and I think an 80s, 90s wrestling feel is what the Undertaker-Kane match needs to have for WrestleMania 29. It has to have a real Rock Cena type feel, and if The Rock versus John Cena Part 2 is going to be taking place at WrestleMania, it doesn't want to overshadow The Undertaker versus Kane. The Undertaker versus Kane and The Rock versus John Cena need to be matches based on mutual respect with a bit of detail, not too much detail in the way of a storyline, and the wrestling really needs to make up for what the storyline, I believe, will be lacking for both wrestling matches. And if The Undertaker versus Kane provides us with a bit of detail and a great wrestling match, it's a worthy secondary main event to have at WrestleMania 29. We have seen The Undertaker and Kane wrestle before at WrestleMania. My favorite Undertaker-Kane match was in the late 1990s as part of the Attitude Era. The one from 2004 at WrestleMania 20 when The Undertaker returned after being buried in November of 2003 as the American Badass as the Dead Man Undertaker was a great match, but it was kind of too short. It seemed like a 10-minute long match with The Undertaker winning. We knew The Undertaker was going to win. Kane shouting out at the beginning of the match, you're supposed to be dead, you're not alive, you're not real. Kind of took away from the match. It wasn't my favorite Undertaker-Kane match at any WrestleMania I had seen in the past. And the one from the 90s definitely is the most dominant feud of The Undertaker and Kane's history that will never be duplicated. But the Undertaker-Kane match that could be happening at WrestleMania 29 could be a great match, even with the one from the 90s being the best Undertaker-Kane match I've seen over the last 15 years. Right now on the active roster, there are no two wrestlers you could have involved in a feud that have more history than The Undertaker and Kane. 2013, if the match happens at WrestleMania 29, will bring them up to over 16 years of history, which is more history between two wrestlers, heel or babyface, in the history of the entire company. That's even more history than The Rock and John Cena have, or The Rock and Austin have, or Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar have, Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. Any opponent of The Undertaker that he's feuded with over the last 20 years, that's more history than anybody on the active roster, past or present. That's incredible. And with The Undertaker slated to return in November, that gives WWE just as much time to build up for a match at WrestleMania between The Undertaker and Kane as they had back in 1997 when Kane made his inaugural appearance in WWE and Glenn Jacobs changed his character from the psychotic dentist of Jerry Lawler to the dominant and iconic Kane. Definitely one of Glenn Jacobs' most iconic characters was Kane because he feuds with people like The Undertaker and so many former world champions. As I stated here earlier on in the show, I think matches between The Undertaker and Kane were great, but some of the matches they had left much to be desired, and that's why I believe The Undertaker versus Kane needs to be happening for at least the third time at WrestleMania. We don't need as detailed of a storyline as we've seen in the past because The Undertaker and Kane have virtually done everything from setting each other on fire to burying each other alive. So I think this match needs to be based on mutual respect. Even after everything we have seen The Undertaker and Kane be involved in, we have yet to see a match based on mutual respect. I'm sick of the hatred idea that WWE bring forth every time The Undertaker and Kane feud. I mean, we don't need to have a match based on who's the better wrestler or who's the champion. We just need a match based on mutual respect and The Undertaker's streak having a great deal of emphasis placed on it to make us believe that The Undertaker's streak could potentially be coming to an end probably more than it has in the past. And even with a lot of wrestling fans believing The Undertaker will take his streak with him upon his decision to retire and an eventual Hall of Fame induction, with Kane potentially inducting The Undertaker. If it's not Kane, it'll be Paul Bearer. I want to believe that The Undertaker streak has a chance of coming to an end more than it has had over the last several years, even after seeing incredible matches between The Undertaker and Triple H, with 3 matches of Triple H and The Undertaker happening in the past, and incredible matches of The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels that ended with The Undertaker ending Shawn Michaels' 25-year career, both in the WWE and outside of the WWE, even with the last 4 years being impressive. On the behalf of The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H, and us not getting the triple threat match last year at WrestleMania 28, which fans wanted to see, judging by the chants during the 3-way altercation between The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H, where The Undertaker alluded to the fact that Shawn Michaels was the better wrestler over Triple H. I think that The Undertaker versus Kane needs to happen at WrestleMania, because right now there is no other wrestler in a position greater than Kane is of facing The Undertaker, and with The Undertaker versus Kane, Masked Kane that is, being greater and providing us with a perfect wrestling match and angle for WrestleMania 29, a better angle than we have seen over the last several years, with an exception for Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker and Triple H being put in place. It's great. And if WWE dropped the ball again on having The Undertaker versus Masked Kane, I'm going to lose a lot of respect for WWE. The problem I have with The Undertaker versus Masked Kane is the fact that, WWE could have given us this match back at WrestleMania 28. Here comes Kane back with this new mask, this new attitude, this desire to have John Cena embrace hate. Having John Cena and Kane feud in Kane's first feud as this newly revamped, resurrected Kane was a great decision. And then you could have had Kane come out of this feud with John Cena with a victory, have a lot of momentum at WrestleMania, and have him face Deadman Undertaker. The problem I have with the Undertaker and Kane feud is WWE consistently dropped the ball on having this match at WrestleMania. They dropped the ball for WrestleMania 28. They even dropped the ball for WrestleMania 27, if you want to go back that far. So if they drop the ball for at least the 4th time on having this match happen, I'm going to lose a great deal of interest in any storyline that WWE